And welcome everyone to Valencia College News Radio. This is Editor-in-Chief Jeremy Gottschalk coming to you from this week back from spring break. How's everyone doing?
Doing all right. How was your spring break?
Doing awesome. Let's give our introduction, see who our special guests are for today.
Today we have Jade.
Marhaba.
And Ori, I'm a Valencia College student. In my major is journalism.
Yeah, Ori Torre just put out we're starting our broadcasting TV segment. We'll see how it goes. We've got a little bit of a noise distortion on some of our reels. Hopefully we can resolve that and start doing a little bit more of the FaceTime TV broadcasting to our reels and get out that digital content that we've been striving towards. Today, Jade is going to be talking with us. Jade is a Valencia student. For reasons of anonymity and to protect loved ones, we're going to be refraining from going into too much personal details. But you have become involved in putting together a 12-year anniversary marker for the Syrian civil war, the Syrian revolution. Tell us a little bit about how did you get involved in all of that?
Hi, I'm Jade. I have family back home in Syria. I am a Syrian woman, and it's been 12 years of revolution. And I've been waiting a long time, thinking, someone will build a Syrian community here, or someone who's a better speaker, better organizer, maybe more educated. On this will come forward, they'll speak, they'll put something together, and nobody has. So I figured, it's probably time to stop waiting. If you look up Orlando, Syria rally or protest, the last thing is from 2017, which was 6 years ago, and it was hands off Syria, which is not the message that we want to send. Anti-war doesn't really work if a war is already happening.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and tell us a little bit about, so you decided, you saw 2017 is what you're saying.
I've been looking for a long time. You see other communities in Central Florida come together and they put together events to speak out for what they care about. And I thought, this is something that is obviously very important to me. Someone must be doing something. No one has. And so I decided, it's been 12 years. I realized I have the capability of doing this. After the earthquake in Turkey and Syria, I noticed people actually will listen sometimes if you speak. A lot of people don't really know the reality of what's happening. And that's because we've stopped talking about it. It's old news. It's not trendy.
Right.
So I realized, there are people that don't know and that would care if they knew. So, 15 years ago, teenage boys graffitied their schools during the Arab Spring. They saw what was happening in Egypt and Tunisia, and they thought, this should happen here, this can happen here, and it will happen here. So they wrote, Ajak el-Dur Doctor, your turn next doctor, referring to Bashar al-Assad's former occupation as an ophthalmologist, saying, you're next, this dictatorship will not continue, and we will not abide by your rule. They were tortured in prison, and Syrians took to the streets peacefully, demanding for their release. 15 teenage boys, children, and they were met with extremely violent reaction.
Right.
Yeah, and that sparked the revolution. And we
And-
are still here 12
yeah.
years later.
You see that there's a reported 500,000 people.
Minimum.
Minimum.
Yeah, that's a low estimate. So they say 500,000 people have been martyred through the Syrian revolution, but there is not a good way to estimate the true loss because of a lack of objective reporting, a lack of cooperation from the regime, and also, how to put it delicately, destruction of evidence, the evidence being bodies.
Right. And we're seeing, according to one of the censuses, 2000 United States census, obviously it's 20-something years ago, there are roughly 142,000 Americans of Syrian ancestry living in the United States. If we look at that, couple it with the amount of death and loss, I believe there's 21 million Syrians as of now, or a little over 21 million. But if you're talking about over 500,000 people have lost their lives, that's more than possibly the exponential factor placed on Syrian immigration out here, and refugees. Obviously, I think there's 3 million Syrian refugees in Turkey. I think that's the number one.
I know that in the neighboring countries, there are, I think, over 5.5 million refugees, but I don't know Turkey specifically.
Yeah, so that's pretty incredible. And now you're not a public speaker.
No, I'm very clearly not.
Right. Well, I think you're doing an amazing job on here.
Shukran. Thank you.
Thank you.
What would be some of the hurdles that you faced in trying to go about planning something like this?
I have a lot to say. So to maybe try to stereotype myself a little bit, I'm very vocal, and I have a lot of opinions. That's a very Arab thing about me. I have a lot of thoughts. Writing, my script has not been as challenging as I thought it would be, just because I've thought all these things. I've felt all these things for a long time. Syrians have been saying these things for over a decade, so everything's out there. The most difficult part is letting people know, not even just the information, but that there is information for them to receive. So outreach has been very difficult. I've reached out to many different communities. I've been doing on the ground, trying to pin flyers. And I actually haven't received any word from, anybody who might be close to the cause or a connected cause who would want to speak, who would want to support, who would want to come involve themselves. So I'm anticipating low turnout, but that's not really the purpose of this. It's just to do the right thing, speak out, and share with anyone who will listen. But that's definitely been very challenging, is getting attention from people who are in the area.
Do you think people are afraid to speak out?
I would think that if I thought it was Syrians who are hesitant. There is not a large, to my knowledge, Syrian population here. I've noticed, though, that other Arab communities, for example, if you look at the Palestinian community here, it's blossoming. They have such great solidarity. I've gone to some Palestinian Nakba rallies before. They have amazing turnout. They have amazing intersectionality with other communities. So there is definitely still fear, and I see that in my own family, about doing things like this. But this isn't the kind of problem, you don't see this happening as much in New York or actually the New York Syrian community just held a rally a few days back, last Saturday, I believe it was the 18th, to commemorate the revolution. So I'm not sure if it's a lack of Syrians or if it's a lack of solidarity, but I think it might be multiple issues.
Lack of knowledge?
There's only so much that a couple of people can do, in a short period of time, with a small social media account and printed flyers.
Yeah.
Right. Can't just go viral on TikTok.
No,
And like we said, it's been 12 years. Oftentimes the longevity often wears people down at some point. You see a lot of these long-standing wars. For instance, we only just recently, the war on terrorism, you figure how many years that lasted. We also saw what can happen as quickly as a switch with Afghanistan,
Yeah.
with the removal of U.S. troops and you've got different organizations that play these pieces, almost chess pieces with global peace.
Yeah.
And it's so crucial, so critical to understand the volatility of, the fighting forces, the opposition, anyone that's going in. We're constantly see, even on the news, we have major political leaders who are referring to the situations in Ukraine, for instance, talking about how Ukraine is a territory, or that it should be absolved into Russia. We see a lot of the issues that continued fighting in the Middle East. There's a level of fatigue, I believe, that comes with that. I also think, and this is strictly my opinion, but I think there is a reluctance with the faith-based aspect of it because of Syria. It is not a predominantly Christian country. It is being that there is, especially in a lot of the southern states.
There is definitely, I think, I've experienced, and living in Florida, I've definitely experienced Islamophobia. I'm not even Muslim. I've experienced racism for my ethnicity, and I think that for a lot of people, it is indivisible. If you are your Arab ethnicity or similar Middle Eastern ethnicity and Islam. But the truth is, there are Syrian Jews, Syrian Christians. There are other religious minorities, and it's not really about religion. It's the same way that any revolution, really, even some that have religious ties, is never about revolution. It's about the people.
Yeah.
So but I definitely agree with your assessment, because I remember just a year ago when Russia invaded Ukraine, seeing people saying the quiet power out loud on the news. This isn't another Syria, this is a European country with white Christian people who look like us. And so it's putting importance on people who fit the American ideal and then neglecting people who don't, which is why we are here 12 years later.
Even today in legislation at the Florida level, we're seeing the tie-in to comparisons of people who do drag shows and being tied into trans people, the correlation between transgender people and those that are performers in drag, and the assimilation, the combination between our I would say blatantly ignorant legislators who want to draw a comparison between the two as if they are the same. We see a lot of opposition against LGBTQ in that capacity. Uganda just recently passed new legislation that says that there are no more LGBTQ people allowed in the entire country. They are doing away with gay people, essentially. So it's important to understand the facts where we're going. I know that was a bit of a tangent, but with Syria especially, it's very important everyone does their due diligence to understand what happened, not just during the Arab Spring, but for Syrian revolution, what Assad means towards the people, what the fact is that there are this mass genocide, these kidnappings, these disappearances that are happening on the regular, and that is not necessarily a common occurrence. It's pretty difficult to say, why isn't there an intervention coming? Why isn't there something being done on a global level? Or more, I think we should say, why isn't there more being done?
I'm going to come up with my hot take. We know why the United Nations has failed to do their job. And that's because one of the permanent members of the Security Council is Russia. Mm-hmm. And so we allow one of the greatest threats to safety, peace, and security, who commits crimes against humanity, to make decisions for all of humanity. And I think that is the antithesis of what a body like the United Nations should be representing. But even with the earthquake, so no aid came internationally in the aftermath of the earthquake through the opposition-held Syria. None. The United Nations said they were respecting Syrian sovereignty, which that does not apply to the delivery of humanitarian aid.
Yeah.
But it's also, you can't really respect the sovereignty of someone who is a dictator. There's no sovereignty to be had when for 12 years Syrians have been yelling "Ashab yurid iskat an nizam." That has been echoed for 12 years. The people demand the fall of the regime. And so there's no sovereignty to be had. This is a regime propped up by Iran, propped up by Russia. I guess we'll call it good news. Not enough, but good news. The International Criminal Court just
issued a warrant.
A warrant for Vladimir Putin's arrest for crimes against humanity.
Specifically kidnapping Ukrainian children.
Yes.
Yeah.
So in Ukraine, but that's not enough. He needs to be tried for what he's done in Syria. The same way the Iranian supreme leader needs to be tried. The same way Bashar al-Assad needs to be tried. Again, we say Ajak al-Dur ya Doktor. It's your turn next. We've had enough. And war crimes are war crimes regardless of where they happen. It's not only important when it happens in a country that America finds more palatable.
Yeah. And what would be one goal of your rally coming up on April 1st? Actually, go ahead and tell us where this rally is going to be taking place. What are the details that you're comfortable disclosing regarding this? And what's your overall goal?
Okay, yeah, I could love to tell you about that. So April 1st, not this Saturday, but the next one at 12 p.m. So we're going to be gathering at Orlando City Hall in the City Commons Plaza. And so basically,
right off of North Orange Street.
Or 400 South Orange Avenue,
South
Orlando,
Orange.
Florida,
Turns into South.
32801. I brought my flyer. So the first and foremost thing that we want to do is we want to mourn the loss, because not only have 500,000 people been killed at minimum in the last 12 years, people have been murdered by the regime for 52 years, starting with Hafiz al-Assad, Bashar al-Assad's father before him. People have been disappeared, fates unknown. People still wait for their loved ones to be released from prison, paying bribes to try to get their release secured. People still suffer, are internally displaced, are starving. So first and foremost, we want to give that the weight and respect that it deserves. And then we also want to educate. So if anyone's coming on by or wants to learn more, we want to share information. There's a lot of propaganda. People say Bashar al-Assad won 95% of the vote in 2021 in his presidential election. His government filled out those ballots, which would be how he got 95% of the votes, because it wasn't a real election. And it never has been. But we want to, we want to educate people and share this information and let people know this is still happening. It's not going away. And here's what you can do to help. You can share information. You can donate to non-government organizations outside of the United Nations, so that it's actually supporting the Syrians who need help and not going through the regime. And you can write to your Congress members. I don't know, I can't remember the exact specifications of it, but the House of Representatives just passed a bill, a resolution that was championed by the American Coalition for Syria. I think it was 414-2. I believe is basically saying or affirming that aid would not be given for the earthquake disaster through the regime. And I could have the details wrong on that. But the point is, it's still relevant. We have sanctions against Syria. There are legislative things that can be, or legislative actions to be taken, I guess. And so is your Congress member in favor of that? Is your Congress member listening to you and to your demands as a constituent?
Yeah. Well, we saw even Representative Matt Gaetz, there was a resolution to remove U.S. troops, which was shut down back in March 8th. The idea was that they were going to pass a Northwestern Florida congressman who's known for very radical ideologies. There was a Resolution 21, House Resolution 21 for a Syria War Powers Resolution, ultimately having removal of U.S. armed forces from Syria within 180 days, and it fell to the wayside. Voted against 321 to 103 on that Wednesday. So just to say, even now, I mean,
Yeah.
people are aware that the war is going on, and if anything, there's a lot of opposition to continuing it.
I think a lot of people feel like it's far away.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, physically that's true, but I think that it should feel close. It should feel very close. This is not a civil war. This is a revolution. This is not a conflict. It is a genocide. This is a genocide. A Syrian person committing genocide against his own people. And so if people are tired of hearing it, I mean, I can't even imagine what it's like to actually live it.
Well, see if we can listen to this audio clip and see if you want to weigh on it.
Most Americans don't know a single Syrian. And so people watching this debate might wonder, how has it come to be that Syria has become the great platform of great power competition in the world? Begins in 2011 during the Arab Spring, when Assad, who is undeniably a madman and a despot, opens fire on his own people protesting. Then part of the Syrian army defects. They engage in warfare against Assad, and all of a sudden they got a whole lot of weapons and money being sent from the rich Gulf monarchies through Jordan into Syria. So Iran's not just going to watch this. Assad's their ally. They activate Hezbollah. They then invade Syria. So now you've got Jordan, the Gulf monarchies, Iran. But wait, Russia is pitching their vision of the world as a regime preservation force, whether you're Maduro or Assad. So they get involved, and what do they get for their time? A warm water port in the eastern Mediterranean. So we've got Russia, the Gulf monarchies. Israel starts to get worried about Hezbollah and Iran. So Israel cuts a deal with Russia to keep Iran out of southern Syria. And
Everybody
if
following
it doesn't
along?
get any worse than that, now all of a sudden you've got the Kurds who declare war on Syria, and it makes it a little messy that the Kurds are also in conflict with Turkey, which is a NATO ally. And then somehow the United States in 2015 says, you know what? We need to get involved in this mess in Syria. And since we have been there, we have seen Americans die. We have seen tens of billions of dollars wasted. And what is hilarious about the 2001 AUMF that the neoconservatives wave around like some permission slip for every neoconservative fantasy of turning an Arabian desert into a Jeffersonian democracy is that very 2001 AUMF would justify attacking the people that we're fighting against and the people we're funding. Because both have ties to al-Qaeda, and of course the 2001 AUMF dealt with al-Qaeda. All this talk about a reemergence of ISIS, I would encourage my colleagues to go read the Inspector General's report of the last quarter that indicates that ISIS is not a threat to the homeland. And with the Turks conducting operations in Syria against ISIS, with Assad and Russia having every incentive to create pressure on ISIS, I do not believe that what stands between a caliphate and not a caliphate are the 900 Americans who have been sent to this hellscape with no definition of victory, with no clear objective, and purely existing as a vestige to the regime change, failed foreign policies of multiple former presidents. I reserve the balance of my time.
Wow.
So much happened in those
He's so angry.
few moments.
Just sounds so angry, huh?
Why are you angry? I'm angry. Why are you angry?
So he's saying 900 troops, I can tell you, working out of Eurocom and AFRICOM and the entirety of the Middle Eastern support. A lot more people that are just not boots on ground, specifically in Syria, but are offering some semblance of aid in one capacity or the next. The question is, he's saying there's no clear definition of victory. There's no role for the United States in Syria. We're not a Middle Eastern power. We have tried to build a democracy out of sand, blood, and Arab militias. Time and again, we work. The work we do does not reduce chaos. Oftentimes, it causes chaos, the very chaos, and that subsequently leads to terrorism. While today's vote may have failed, my fight to end forever wars will bring our troops home. The fight to end forever wars and bring our troops home has only just begun. Forever wars. Forever wars. Yeah, that's quite a powerful term.
Yeah. Sand. I don't know why people think that all of the Middle East is just sand. We've got forestry.
Yeah, okay, Anakin Skywalker. It's just sand. Sand everywhere.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a little shady. I think it's think it's interesting that someone who clearly knows so little about Syria is allowed to vote on things concerning Syria. There is a clear goal. There is a clear sign of victory, and that is the removal of the regime. That's the whole point. It's really simple. Bashar al-Assad and his government removed, tried in The Hague alongside Vladimir Putin, who he's on his way. Hopefully, well, practically, likely not, but that's the goal. He should be tried for crimes against humanity and for war crimes, and the objective is for Syrians to have a democracy. A lot of people believe that Syria wasn't ready for a democracy, a Western democracy, whatever that means. Democracy is a human right. We have the right to decide how we govern ourselves. Syrians are ready. There was a network of hundreds of councils in the beginning of the revolution. People, local councils, people working to try to free Syria, and Syrians are ready and able to govern themselves. They don't need, as people like to refer to it, as a regime change. It's a regime change, but it's not some crazy conspiracy or mass plot. For some people think, oh, it's the United States' attempt to get oil. No, there's a genocide happening. There are other things happening in the world besides oil and sand. I don't know how to say that without being a little bit derisive. But that's a clear goal, and I think that it's a very realistic goal, and it's why people in Syria, even this past month, have been coming out and protesting. They are still waving. We have a revolution flag with a green stripe. They're still waving the green striped flag, rejecting the regime flag, and demanding that the regime falls. So I think that's a very clear goal and a clear sign of victory is the Syrian people will have power. And I also, he said so many things. There were so many words.
Right.
Yeah. Each one of them was worse than the last. I've noticed it's almost crazy. I don't know if anyone's seen this. I'm sure you have, but if you've noted in other areas of like policy, people really like binaries. So
right. Labels and binaries.
Yes.
It's always
So
very black and white.
the idea is the United States has done bad things. So if the United States supports X, that means that X is bad and it's wrong and it's a lie. So the United States opposes Russia. That means Russia is good, right? If I don't like some of the things that the United States has done, which of course the United States is not infallible, but that means that Russia's good. And the United States is officially anti-Assad. That means that Bashar al-Assad has a thriving government. People love him, and this is just an attempt to sabotage that. That, of course, is insane, and that's crazy. That's not the way the world works. It's not like A or B. You have to pick one. There's nuance.
There's pieces of a puzzle,
like,
yeah.
The United States can do stuff that's bad and then support things that are good. And
global power,
I know, like multiple things can be true. I know that's the craziest thing anyone's going to hear.
Yeah, we go back to the Vietnam. We go back to these other conflicts that we've had. Oftentimes, I think in the history books will be looked at for Afghanistan as well. You hear a lot about just our involvement in these global interests. What are they for? And very much what you said. It's not binary in any sense. There's pieces of this puzzle that need to be worked out. There needs to be compromises across the board and understanding. There's not necessarily bad guys in certain situations. It's what are they doing? Why are they bad? You can't just label someone a bad guy. Mind you, I mean, that might be inexcusable for some situations. Like Hitler, for instance, I think would arguably be.
Hitler card.
But mind you, there are enough neo-Nazis around where even that tends to be questionable for a lot of the population, which is really mind-boggling.
It's weird.
It's very weird.
Yeah.
But I hope that in reacting to that, I hope that there are no neo-Nazis in any capacity or white nationalists that decide to show up for your event.
Oh no, we wouldn't. We don't want those. Yeah.
in
from
opposition to your protest or to your rally.
So, I mean, solidarity with decent people, I think, is important.
Right.
And then, you know, if someone wants to come yell at me, like, I'm the one with the microphone, so I can just yell right back.
Right.
I mean, fine. Our goal is to educate people who will listen and to shut down people who won't. So I think that multiple people have told me before too. It's, well, you know, your job when you experience racism and discrimination for your ethnicity is to educate. You know, like, this person's ignorant, you need to educate them. I think that in many situations, like, it would be appropriate to take on that role where I can say, hey, this is what's happening, you're wrong, let me help you to understand this.
Sure.
And there are people who will respond to that well, but I think that, I mean, I'm sure everyone's been in a situation where you can't educate someone who doesn't care. And you can't, I can't make you care about genocide. You know what I mean? Yep. And also, you don't need to extend, I don't think that you need to extend kindness and, I don't know how else to say, but you shouldn't have to extend kindness to people who are going to be offensive and be yelling in your face, or because things I've dealt with, there's no reason to be gracious towards someone who has an ulterior motive or is acting in bad faith, is the way I'll say it. If someone wants to argue and play devil's advocate, you can't really do anything about that. But some people just don't know, and those are the people that we really want to focus on. Because I don't think that there's a crime in not knowing. I think that looking away is really that's where we have an issue, is looking away or spreading propaganda. People making travel vlogs going through the country I can't return to.
Yeah, it's fascinating, right?
Yeah,
and that's their truth, and that's always a big conversation we have here, is trying to present what's going on, and that's the big focal point of journalism as a whole, is trying to tell the full story. We try and stray away from the bloggers, the people who
listen to, you know, people
opinions.
will listen or they won't, and I mean, there's not really any point in focusing on the people who don't want to listen, because that's just a choice of your voice, I think.
With this activism, obviously, I wanted to ask. I mean, I would deem this activism even on an education level. What do you have any aspirations to do this on a professional level? What is your goal in Valencia as a student?
Okay. I mean, admittedly, I'm not a good organizer. I'm not very. I don't know, and I also fear. The thing is, I'm very safe. I'm in Florida. As long as I take a few steps, my family is safe. There are people who do very good work in the Syrian American Council, for instance. I was talking with a representative, or I should say a member from the Syrian American Council the other day. They do great work, and they know that they're putting their families at risk. And that's not something that I can do or a decision I can make. I don't feel comfortable doing that. Mm-hmm. But I'm just being a little vague. I'm pursuing a degree in engineering. And so I used to think maybe I'm being idealistic, but I think it's actually a very good goal. My goal is to learn as much as I can to get my degree, and then inshallah, one day there is a free Syria that I can return to and help rebuild in the capacity of my engineering degree. There's no infrastructure. My home is destroyed. My home country is destroyed. So that's more like, I want to continue speaking and educating, but as far as like my career, I'll do what I can to, you know, be an engineer at the level I can be. To learn and to improve myself, so that one day when Syria, and it will be, Syria is free, I can do my part and use my skills and my experience to fix the mess that we have back home.
That sounds like a very admirable goal, and I hope that you get to accomplish that Thank you, Jade, for spending so much time with us. Is there any final words you'd like to? I mean, that was a great ending right there.
Yes, absolutely.
Once again, pitch out where your event's going to be.
Yeah, April 1st, Saturday at noon, City Commons Plaza. That's on South Orange Avenue. Just look up Orlando City Hall. You'll see us there with our signs and our flags. Come join us.
Is there a color theme or anything that
you can wear green. Probably don't wear red. That's the main color. No offense, your shirt looks great. That's the main color of the regime flag. But I mean, if someone makes a mistake, that's not the end of the world. We're all here to learn.
They're not going to sit you in a corner or tell you to go play by yourself.
Yeah, I mean, maybe
accepting.
just put your head down for a minute. No,
educating.
But bring signs. If you have a flag of solidarity, like another liberation or revolution, any movement that you want to come and represent your movement, we welcome that. We would love that and love to see some support from other communities as well. And that is Orlando City Hall, noon on April 1st.
Awesome, Jade. Thanks so much for being
here. And your
This was
Instagram, so they can
Our
find
Instagram,
more.
yes, we are on Facebook as the Florida Syrian Alliance, and our Instagram handle is FL Syrian Alliance. So
FL Syrian, SYRIAN Alliance, ALLIANCE.
And they can find more info there, right?
Yes, we have a link tree. So we have our flyer for our event, and we have resources on taking action and learning more. So check it out. Thank you so much. I really appreciated it.
Thanks for being here. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be back and we'll talk a little bit about the news. So thanks so much. Until we finish. It's going to be a couple minutes. Why, you want to roll out? Okay. No, we're live right now, so we're going to go back into it. Everybody's like, oh, man, what do we do? I'll say just a quick break. We're back, everyone. This is Jeremy Gostruck, Editor-in-Chief, here with Casey Godwin and Oriana Torre. We're going to be talking just a little bit about what's been going on this week. You got to do a little bit of a news segment earlier. We were saying we had some issues with that, but we've got a couple of events that have been going on around East West Campus. We have Women's History Month in general. It's also Irish American Heritage, being the ginger that I am. I'm trying to go have some late St. Patrick's Day reason to wear green. Same shirt that I'm going to wear to the Syrian rally that's going to be on April 1st, as we just got done talking with Jade. We do have the SGA elections informational session. Can you hear yourself?
No, yes.
Oh, okay. Here we go. I had you muted on there. I'm sorry. I had the wrong mic. So Ori's back, and we were talking about how you had gotten to speak a little bit, do one of our broadcasting. We'll continue to evolve that, hopefully.
Yes.
Get the little sound quality better. We mentioned that there's going to be some landmark lectures on U.S. History Professor Heather Bryson is talking about the Supreme Court on Tuesday, March 28th. It's going to be from 1 to 2 p.m., Building 8, Room 101. Very excited about this. Lunch is going to be provided. Also, West Campus Student Development hosting a second annual We Are West. So bring your cowboy boots and your buckles and
that sounds fun.
Probably not your whips and open carry, permitless carry that's almost passing through our legislation. Don't bring any weapons on campus, but
no, thank you.
Chew some beef jerky.
That sounds good.
There will be food.
There will be food.
Activities.
Yeah, that's going to be parking lot D next week. Women's History Month. If you were to take a shot in the dark, who's a woman that you emulate, that you recognize for Women's History Month? Do you have one in mind? Caught you on the spot.
There's probably a billion, but I can't think.
Ruth
on the
Bader
spot.
Ginsburg for me, obviously. Michelle Obama. Surprisingly, on the opposite side of that, Hillary Clinton has done a lot of really interesting things. Gina Davis and a lot of her, she's an American actor. Brilliant, actually, Mensa, super genius, that's made a lot of nonprofits, and I really aspire to also help communities as much as Gina Davis has. What about you? Who do you have?
Lately, I have been following like a woman that is like working for like the Orlando community. She's a legislator, Joanna Lopez.
Oh, Joanna Lopez, yeah.
Yes, I have been by her side like through her campaign, as she's an amazing woman. She suffered domestic violence, and she came from from the lowest, and she's now there, and she's like really inspiration to me. And as a Latina too, in the capital, she's Puerto Rican, and she's an amazing woman.
Yeah, speaking of the Capitol, you were up actually in Tallahassee. You want to tell us a little bit about what you were doing, what you were up to?
Yes, I was with where I work. They were like supporting this new bill that will make available that the schools that are like designed as shelters, when there is a hurricane, they can have solar energy. So they are trying to pass this bill so they can reduce, of course, the amount of money that the school is like investing in energy, but also like when there is a outage during a hurricane, they can have solar energy and help those people.
Yeah.
But from my experience, like as a woman or as a student in Tallahassee, I found an interesting place there, like in Venezuela, where I came from. Those entities like the Capitol or where the legislators are, like you cannot go there. Like that's so like no, you can go. But here's like you have that freedom, and I haven't experienced that before.
Right.
And like enter into that place just as whatever, like they didn't require like an ID, just walking through the whole Capitol.
Inside
like,
the building or on the grounds?
Yeah, inside the building.
Yeah, now, so that this recent legislation, actually, Governor Ron DeSantis has imposed that if he has opposing views, that you're not actually allowed inside the building. What do you think about that?
I don't know, like that sounds like Venezuela.
Yeah.
Maybe, yes, because
It's very, very authoritarian. Kind of scary to think about it if you're in opposition protests. It sounds like a protective measure to try and prevent, essentially January 6th from happening. But on the other side of that, it was actually more of a conservative geared MAGA group that was out there and participating in what were the January 6th insurrection of the Capitol. But yeah, it's good that you as a student,
Yes,
especially from
to
another
experience
country,
that.
was able to go and experience one of those, I guess, advocations for bipartisan legislation to promote easier access to installing solar power to those emergency shelters,
Yes.
those school spaces. That's House Bill 195, State Bill 178. Senator Lori Berman, Democrat out of Boynton Beach, is the co-sponsor for the Senate Bill 178, alongside Republican state representatives or senators Alexis I'm going to say it wrong, Calatayud from Miami, as well as other senators. And so far it's received unanimous support. So it's very likely that we'll see clean energy being used for
Hopefully,
for
yes.
infrastructures. Yeah, when it comes
And
to
actually,
things like emergencies.
we got to talk to many representatives and senators of the Florida House, and you saw like many high school students that went there also to talk with them.
Wow.
Like like it was inspiring to see them talking to them and saying, "Okay, you should pass this bill."
Yeah, it's such a
Oh,
cool
see
news
this.
story. Yeah, just I wish you'd written a news story. If you have photos, send it to us. We'll put it on
Yes.
the social media.
Yes, yes.
Especially if you have any.
I actually talked to some of them. I talked to Joanna Lopez, with Senator Victor Torres,
Oh,
also
Victor Torres.
about this bill. And one of them were one representative Republican that is I think is the chair of one of the committees where this bill is like in this time, I think. And we couldn't talk to him, but we talked to his
Like his aide, or maybe he's like secretary.
Exactly, yes. And I got to speak to him like, okay, sometimes the Hispanic families are the one that most affected because are like the immigrants and are new here. So these shelters can also help them. And I don't know, I felt empowered to talk to them. I don't know if they will do it. Like, you just don't know what will happen. But at least you have the opportunity to talk that I haven't experienced in Venezuela, for example. Like, there is like, you already know. So I invite people that where I work, they are always looking for young people to go to these places. And I invite others to maybe try, just one time to see what it's like to be in the capital and talk to the legislators that you choose, because you are older than 18, you can vote.
Yeah.
So you are choosing them. Why you can talk to them? So I think I invite them, and I cannot vote yet, but if you can, like, you can involve in that.
Vote.
And
That's
speak.
the big point. Vote.
Yes.
That's awesome.
Because they tell us, like, I'm here because of you, and they know that. So if they know that, they know the power that you have.
Yeah.
So
It's always a crazy position to be in. To be like, I have a voice, and especially
Actually.
I'm a representative, and you're representing me. We do
Yes.
have a Valencia Engage. Be sure to check that out for all the other Women's History Month events that are going on. African American Cultural Society and Active Minds are presenting Beautiful and Bold on Thursday, March 30th. That's going to be East Campus, Building 8, Room 101. And then reporter Ileana Bentel visited downtown Orlando's She Sells Market. This month, the March event was showcasing female and LGBTQ small business owners. You can read more about that on Valencia.com. We've had a lot of articles the last couple of weeks. We had spring break go down. Did you do anything fun for spring break?
I went bar hopping for the first time.
You went bar hopping?
Yeah.
Why for the first time? Because you just turned 21?
No, I'm 23, man.
You got to explain yourself. What is bar hopping? What does the first time bar hopping mean?
Just go to different bars with a bunch of friends. That's about it. Try different drinks.
Yeah, do you have any recommendations?
Nope, because I didn't drink.
Didn't drink?
I just had a sip of a few things. It wasn't very good.
What about ambience? You didn't like the ambience?
The ambience was great. We went to this one goth place, like rock. It was amazing.
Was that Guilt nightclub?
No, it was no night. It was downtown Orlando.
Okay, so probably like Vanguard or
it was
View
something
or
like
something.
that. It was pretty cool though.
Cool, awesome. And then we did get to speak to Hannah Wooten from Cal's Chickens and Hydroponics. Briefly talked with Hannah Wooten. Was able to get a quote regarding the agro tour. So we've included that in our article. If you haven't already read that March 7th article has been updated. And we got to talk to Edie Gaithwaite as well. I think I'm butchering the name, but Edie is a professor of new media, as part of the new media pipeline, does communication law as well as data analytics. So feel free to check. I think, maybe I'm correcting myself, maybe it's not data analytics, but I know particularly in new media, speech professor. So they both put together this big giant event for students to be able to go to Agro Tour, and they hope to do that in the coming year. So we got those articles out there. Also, the Valencia Intercultural Student Association hosted the International Mother Language Day night. That was on March 6th, I know, almost a month ago. Ayan Zook reported to us about the Bangladeshi promoted International Day, where they recognize mother languages, essentially those that may be at risk of disappearing because of lack of use, or in particular Hawaiian, for instance, had I think it was a 70-year period where they weren't allowed to speak it, and almost went to it almost expired in its entirety. So it's important to understand and salvage those languages. But yeah, how's about March Madness?
A lot of crazy upsets.
Yeah, tell us about it.
A lot of number one seeds are going down.
Who do you think is going to win?
I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell. I didn't even get to fill out my bracket, but if I was able to, it would have been in shambles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
I'd probably go with Bama to win.
Not Florida Atlantic?
I mean, you never know, but probably absolutely not.
or Miami?
I hate Miami.
Wow. Yeah,
So I'd probably go with Bama or Tennessee.
Alabama. Alabama is ranked number 1 right now.
Yep.
After everybody else got knocked out. So are they really number 1, or are they?
I don't know.
I don't know. Number 1, Gonzaga comes in at number 3. They're going up against UCLA tonight. We'll
It's
see.
gonna be a crazy game.
It's going to be the Sweet 16. If you don't read an article about this, I'm going to be so shocked. I'd love to hear predictions. I think Tennessee's in the slot for taking it this time.
Yeah.
Just looking at their seed and who they're going to be going up against, I think they have the best shot. We'll see. It's going to be fascinating games all around. So, and with that, do you have any other exciting news going on?
Nope.
All right. Well, we did have Jade Arda come out and talk with us. It was fantastic. Good opportunity to speak with her. Be sure to check us out on valenciavoice.com if you're interested in writing, reporting, being on TV, or coming on the radio. We'd love to have your input. And we're still trucking forward. We've got, 4 or 5 weeks left of school?
Oh my God, so fast.
It's incredible fast. And I'd love to get a lot of our news articles pushed out.
Like yesterday was 2022.
Right.
Actually.
Yesterday was
feels like-
2020. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not even over COVID
Like,
Nope.
at this
I
point.
thought we were in a pandemic, you know.
Yeah, what happened? Well, with that, thanks everybody for being here. This has been Jeremy Gottschalk.
Casey Godwin.
And Oriana Torre.
Oriana Torre. Hope you all
Or
have...
Ori.
Or Ori.
Easier.
Hope you all have a great rest of your week, and stay tuned for more exciting Valencia Voice reporter stuff coming up in the future. Hope everyone has a great rest of your return to spring semester. I'll be graduating, so that's an
Same
update.
here.
Oh,
Yeah,
Hopefully.
got a lot of graduates that are going to be coming through, so we may have to do a feature on that as well. Have a great day, everyone.
thank you.